Now, only in this hobby you could find a piece of a mechanism like a balance spring used as the high piece for the next product release, such as what Omega did in the last 2 weeks. Now, you can imagine that as an equivalent of using a spark plug as the talking point for your next car. Well, actually, can you imagine that if you use, like, say, an arc reactor as spark plug? Well, that is something. Or maybe let's do it. Let's talk about it this way. It's an equivalent of making a device, a transmitter that turns your device into a wireless power source. They're actually doing that already. Oh, okay. How about this? Maybe it's the equivalent of a revolutionary variant of hop that you could use in your beer to make it taste great, and at the same time, you to lose that pirate gut that you have for like 30 years. What about that? Nobody's done that yet, for all I know. Let me know if you found that. Comment down below. But that's what Omega did. They used a part of technology to push forward the innovations for the rest of its collection. But you know what? They've been doing that for years, and they seem to know that there's a formula behind it, and here's how they did it. Omega has a history of taking existing technology and improve on them to publicize the brand's ability in showmaking. I mean, watchmaking. This is clear even before Omega was named the O brand. In 1892, the brand Brothers created the first mid repeater for the wrist, where it is previously seen only on pocket watches. 2 years later, the 19 line caliber was born. This was then extremely accurate, its components are interchangeable, and can be replaced without modification of the watchmaker. And both the winding and time setting are all accessed in the same crown. This was called the Ultimate or Omega caliber. This revolutionized how watches were manufactured and was so successful that Omega became the brand's name. A number of decades later, Omega merged with a few watch companies to ensure their survival during the Great Depression. While many brands died out, Omega picked up on another existing technology, the bumper automatic caliber. This was originally created by John Hardwood to make his watch cases, strangely unrelated to the function, more robust against dirt and mud. Omega popularized these types of watches from the 30s through the 50s. In 1932, the quest for a better sealed case gave birth to the first commercially available diver's watch, the Marine. This watch used a double case design to ensure that the movement inside is protected against the elements. Because, if one protection is not enough, slip on another for good measure. In 1937, the Omega Medicus became the darling of doctors in the medical field as its sweeping central seconds hand made it very useful for checking a person's pulse rate. 10 years later, Omega hit another milestone by incorporating another horological contraption in a wristwatch, the tourbillon. This was not made available for the public, but this contributed to watch technology that we still see today. We can see a definite pattern from Omega here. When a new technology comes along, Omega takes that tech and tries to move it forward to a seemingly better version. Tissot made the first anti-magnetic wristwatch, for example, by using parts that were unaffected by magnetism. 27 years later, Omega significantly upgraded that magnetic resistance with its 1000 Gauss Railmaster. This uses a Faraday cage around its CK2914 caliber. When the quartz revolution came around in the 70s, Omega jumped in the bandwagon and proved that they can do better by making the most accurate quartz wristwatch, the Mega Quartz. This one is accurate to 0.002 seconds per day. When the escapement was getting old, Omega found a way to make it more accurate. In 1999, George Daniel and Omega created a coaxial escapement that has much less surface contact, improving performance. Other brands continue to step up with innovations such as Ulysse Nardin when it created the world first silicone hairspring, but it was far less accessible to the public. Omega changed that by, making it more available, relatively, within many of its product range. This also brings us back full circle to what Tissot did decades earlier, as Omega ditched the iron cage and manufactured many of the movement parts like the silicon hairspring as anti-magnetic, like Tissot. This produced the Aquaterra that had a 15,000 Gauss resistance in 2013. This, of course, was referenced by the latest innovation by Omega, the Spirit technology that was released a few days ago. One can argue that Omega and much of the watch brands out there are not releasing anything new or groundbreaking recently, but one cannot deny either that Omega is certainly not satisfied at just taking existing tech and use it within their own products. We need Omega to keep this spirit of innovation alive. It's one of the areas in horology that is as constant as Rolex persistence in making gradual and minuscule changes. This is actually one of the strongest cases for Omega as being an alternative or better choice than Rolex. While the former is often viewed as more valuable, which in many cases is true, Omega, technology and innovation wise, has done better and more often. And that is actually good for every watch fan, even if they are not buying Omega brand watches. Because when Omega does better, they take horology along with them. So if you're tired of complaining that your watch brands are starting to look stale and your micro brands started to look the same, then Omega is here to propose to you new ways of pushing watch technology forward. They've got the resources and they're using all of them as part of their blueprint for innovation.